guys, my name is Brooke and I'm from the Atlanta School of Ministry. About a week ago, a guy called me and he was like, man, I would just love it if you could encourage the students and the parents and prepare them for camp. And so I was like, yeah. So like, is there any like theme or anything? And so he gave me this one word, and it was surrender. And when he gave me that word, so many things just started like flogging my mind, and I was like, man, that word has so much power. And when he said it, immediately I thought about how the Western church has taken the word surrender and really just amplified it to be almost all of its meaning being like a laying down of. But when I looked it up, there was these three phrases these three different definitions that really hit home for me. And as I began to read them, I was like, man, these touch three different aspects of our heart and our character that God is so adamant about changing and growing in, because we're His. And so He wants us to continually revamp what we are. It's not like a different, better us. It's a new us that is continually growing. And so for the first one, it says to give the control or use of to someone else. And that immediately made me think, man, sonship and daughtership. So first is identity. And surrender, you have to know that identity is so needed, it's so necessary. To have sonship means that you are no longer your own, but you realize that the Father of all things has said, I'm yours. You're no longer a slave to sin, you're no longer a slave to the things of the world, but you are mine. And I want you not to have control of you, but that your whole heart would be mine, that I could lead you. The second one I realized was to allow something to have habit or desire and influence in us. And immediately I was like, man, like, we allow desires to either be a good thing or a bad thing. Desires aren't necessarily bad, but when we desire something that's not of God, it becomes something that's not okay. And so immediately I was like, man, like, are we desiring the things of God, or are we desiring the things of the world? Like, honestly, like, you've seen the commercials when people put up a salad or apple as opposed to a cookie or brownie. Like, most people, especially in the West and America, would choose the sweeter option. But God's like, I've given you a good option, and that's me. And if you desire me, you'll desire the things of me, and in turn your image will be more like me. He wants us to know who we are and take on that image and begin to bear His fruit and bear the things of Him, that our desires would be of good. And the third thing was to agree to stop fighting, hiding, or resisting, because you know that you will not win or succeed. And that was huge, because the Lord's not saying that His plan and who He is will not win. He's saying you alone, because you're hiding and resisting Him. See, He's saying that when you know who you are, and you bear His image, and you bear the good fruit, and then you get down to the root and put away the old and become alive and hungry for the things of Him, then you won't hide, you won't resist Him, you won't resist the things of Him. Therefore, you won't rely on yourself, but you'll rely on His strength. And man, that's surrender. Surrender is not about necessarily sacrifice, but totally about obedience. See, in the word in 1 Samuel 15:22, it says obedience is better than sacrifice. And I think sometimes we forget that. I think we make surrender all about, let me lay down what I'm going through, let me put on the altar, let me make it about me. Sometimes we make the altar about us, when in turn God says, I've given you the altar to, yes, lay down things, but to more stand up, be confident, know who you are, and say, I will obey, because obedience is God's love language, and He loves you. He loves us. So I just want to encourage you guys to remember that surrender is totally about obedience, and obedience is God's love language, and He loves you. Therefore, He wants you to know who you are and walk in that, and leave the old behind and become awake and alive. I'm excited about what's going to happen this summer. I'm excited about you guys. And so I just encourage you, take this. Remember 1 Samuel 15:22. And remember that God wants all of you.